welcome everyone today. Welcome to our three presenters that are here below. We invite everyone, like Raul said, to enter your comments and your questions into the chat. After their presentation, I will go down the line and ask your questions. Hopefully we get to all of your questions. Now, first, we will have MIT, and with MIT today, we have Tiffany Velez. She's the Associate Director of Admissions. And so she will go first, and right after her, we have Palo Alto College. Catherine Doss joins us, and she is the Interim VP, College of Services. And then we have University of New Mexico, the School of Engineering, and we have Mr. Toby Foya with us today. And we welcome each one of you. Now, while Raul is loading that up, hello, Tiffany.
Hello, how are you?
Doing great, starting to enjoy the fall weather. It changes day by day, but it's starting.
And thank you everybody for joining us this afternoon. We definitely appreciate your time kind of talking through our institutions. Great. So hi, good afternoon, everyone. So I'm here to talk to you a little bit today about MIT, located in Cambridge, Massachusetts, just across the river from downtown Boston. And one question that we commonly get from parents, prospective students is, what are you really looking for? What does your process actually look like? And this is a quote that was from one of our popular blogs that came out a few years back. And I think it's still relevant even today when thinking about our process. Scores, are one tool that we use to help us in the admissions process. Your grades are important as well. But ultimately, what we're really thinking about is who you are and what qualities you're bringing to the table. We want students that are academically curious and passionate, people who will bring their various talents to MIT and really share them with others. We're looking for people who are good roommates, good mentors, and good friends. And ultimately, the takeaway from that being is that we don't admit test scores, we admit people. So in terms of what our process looks like, it is a holistic admissions process, meaning that we review every single aspect of an applicant before we make a decision. Test scores and grades certainly are one thing, but we also look at things like your essay questions. We want to hear from you, not as an applicant number, but as a person. What are your passions? What are your interests? What are your aspirations? What challenges have you overcome in your life? We really want to get to know you. And with 20,000 plus applicants, the best way is to kind of really hear your voice and read your responses. We're also looking at things like your activities. How are you choosing to spend time outside of the classroom? We're looking at letters of recommendation, an interview that's optional. We're considering all of these things together to really shape a very dynamic and very diverse class. And in terms of what that looks like, we have about 4,500 undergraduate students at MIT with 6,000 more graduate students. We have 5 distinct schools of study. We have the School of Engineering, the School of Science. We have the Sloan School of Business Management, the oldest school of architecture in the United States, and the School of Humanities, Arts, and Social Sciences. So when you're applying to MIT, you're applying directly to the institution, not to a program, not to a department, because we also want students to have some academic flexibility and freedom. We realize that your passions may change, your interests academically could shift. We want to give you the room to kind of explore your options, especially as a first-year student. In terms of other things to think about in terms of our campus community, 20% of students are first generation to college. We do not have a dominant ethnicity represented at MIT. It's very diverse in a variety of different ways. And also with gender parity. Our last year's admitted class was 50-50 men and women. And for an Institute of Technology, that's really amazing. And we're very excited about having, again, this very diverse, very dynamic student body. Okay, so you know a little bit now just in terms of context, but this is really kind of the MIT application in one fell swoop. So the first step, if you are thinking about applying to MIT, is to go to our website, which is mitadmissions.org. MIT is a very unique institution in a variety of different ways. One of them is that we're not on the Common App or the Coalition app. We have our own specific application that can be accessed through our website. And here are a few components. We talked about holistic admissions. These are really important ones that we're thinking about when looking at a student's application. So we have essays, really a misnomer. They're more of short answer responses. The longest response that you'll submit is about 250 words. Activities, what are you involved with outside of the classroom? Distinctions and awards, whether those are academic or non-academic. And letters of recommendation. We want to hear from people who see you every day in the classroom and can tell us more about your academic interests, how you work well with other people. For us, those are the types of things that we think are very important when evaluating students. Your transcript. We also want to see your full academic trajectory from your first year as a freshman up into your senior year, and thinking about, academic rigor. Are you challenging yourself? And what classes are you taking depending on what's available to you? All of this is, again, within the proper context of each individual student. We also look at standardized tests. This year with COVID-19, things are a little bit different. We've actually suspended our testing requirement for this year's group of students. The biggest reason being safety. We want students to not be putting themselves at risk just to take an exam for a couple of hours. For us, that payoff is certainly not something that we're thinking about this year. So there is some flexibility there. And then we have an interview. And interviews are done by local MIT alumni in your area. This year, this will also be virtual, and they're called educational counselors in our office. So for us, these are folks that have been through this process before, but they're also from your region. They know where you're coming from, and they're excited to meet the next generation of MIT students. So for them, this is really a privilege. It's very much a volunteer-based program, but they want to talk to you, and you also have a chance to talk to an MIT alum and gain and garner some more information. So it definitely works both ways. So in a nutshell, this is essentially what we're looking at in terms of the application. Again, I do encourage you, Melissa dropped the link in the chat, thank you, to look at the website because we do have some more detailed information. We also have a specific FAQ page related to COVID-related questions in terms of testing and application components and things of that nature. We really just want to give students a chance to present their best case, to really showcase every aspect of their application in terms of what they're doing and what they've been involved with, and give them the appropriate avenues to do that. So this is what our application looks like. If you have questions, go to the website. We also have a general admissions address, which is very, very helpful. It's just admissions@mit.edu. And then if you have anything in terms of the app, if you're a prospective student, maybe looking earlier, we're happy to kind of talk through all of those things with you. And that is about financial aid, which is also a very important part of the college search and selection process. So for us, there's a big three that we want you to think about and remember when considering MIT, and they're listed in terms of the first three bullet points. The first is that we're a need-blind institution. That means that when we're considering an application for admission, we don't consider any financial information. We're solely basing that on the admissions app. That's all that we consider for our process. The second is that we're need-based. We do not offer athletic scholarships at MIT. We have a very robust Division III program with 33 sports, but we don't offer athletic scholarships. We don't offer merit scholarships. It is strictly need-based aid. We do not want the price of MIT to be a barrier or a deterrent from a student to consider us or to enroll. So for us, we are very fortunate that we have a very generous financial aid policy, and this is for all of our students, international, domestic, undocumented, DACA status, whatever it happens to be. We want to make sure, again, that accessibility for us is very important. We want to make sure that, again, the cost of MIT is not going to be an issue for any of our prospective students. And we're also full need. So that means that for us, we're essentially covering 100% of every family's demonstrated financial need through our process. And this is separate. Again, it's a separate application. It goes to a separate office, our colleagues in Student Financial Services, but it does run parallel to our application. So the financial aid application is due in mid-February. And for us, in terms of the admissions application, you can either apply early action, which is November 1st for the deadline, or January 1st, which is the regular action deadline. So here are a few just kind of facts in terms of financial aid and what it looks like. It is very different from family to family, but the Student Financial Services site also has a financial aid calculator. So if you wanted to put in some information and get a general estimate of what it could look like for you and your family, that is also readily available for our students. And I think I will pass it on. Thank you.
Thank you, Tiffany. Now, I just want to make sure that I put the correct website on the chat, and that at mit.edu. Is that correct?
Admissions plural. I'll add it in here.
Okay.
Great.
Now
Thank you.
will move on to Alamo College with Catherine.
All right, good afternoon. Thank you so much, Melissa. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. I'm honored to have the opportunity to share a little bit about Palo Alto College, the Alamo colleges, and community colleges in general. So Palo Alto College is considered a community college, and community colleges are considered open access institutions. And basically what that means is that you don't need to have a certain set of test scores or a certain high school GPA in order to be accepted. Basically, by submitting an application through applytexas.org and sending us either your high school transcripts or a high school equivalency such as the GED, you are admitted into our institution. Now, there are some additional requirements that students will see, but we provide a lot of support throughout the process because we know many of our students are the first in their families to go to college, or maybe they've been out of school for a little bit of time, and we're definitely there to provide that support. So those additional requirements can look like taking a placement test in the state of Texas, and for Palo Alto College, that is called the TSI exam. And it's not an exam where you get a right answer or wrong answer. It's just an exam where we can determine the best courses to enroll you into. And in the event that, as a student, you're not quite hitting that college level ready mark, then we have a lot of coursework that you can take that can get you to the college level mark. So a tremendous support system is available at the institution once you apply and then throughout your journey as well. So I talked a little bit about community colleges in general and our admissions requirements, but I also want to share who PAC serves. So we have almost 11,000 students, and a good 25% of those students are dual enrolled. So they are out at our high schools or involved in our early college high school programs, taking classes as high school students before they even complete their high school credential. So we have a large, healthy enrollment of dual enrollment. And then you'll see our average age is about 22. So this is pretty common for community colleges, that it's not necessarily that 18 or 19, but we have students who have been out for a little bit and are coming back to start their education, or they're waiting for a little bit to start their education. The other important thing for PAC is that we do award a lot of federal aid and scholarships. So a good 70 to 80% of our students are the first in their families to come to college. And not only that, they are qualifying for what is called the federal Pell Grant. So the federal Pell Grant is essentially money that our students don't have to pay back that helps them come to college and enroll in college and complete a credential. And the amazing thing about Palo Alto College, as well as all of the Alamo colleges in San Antonio, is that if you're within Bexar County, if you're within county, you would pay about $99 a credit hour, plus a few fees of about $40. So if you're happening to take a full load, at 12 credit hours, so 4 classes, you're looking at a really, really reasonable amount of money that you would pay. And many times, if you're awarded the full Pell Grant, which many of our students are, you have not only your tuition and fees covered in full, but you actually have money remaining that you can use for books and equipment that you need in order to come to college. So I want to share a highlight of our Alamo Promise program. And you may have heard of Promise programs that are taking place across the nation at all different kinds of schools, but Palo Alto College, as well as the Alamo colleges, is offering this program for the first time this fall semester. And we're working with 25 local high schools, so almost 10,000 students, with a goal to enroll 3,000 students into the 5 institutions. The amazing thing about Alamo Promise is that essentially it is a scholarship or a financial aid award so that you can come to school for free. You don't have to pay tuition. You don't have to pay those mandatory fees. This Alamo Promise program covers all of those expenses for you as a student. So it definitely takes away that financial barrier that so many of our students do face and provides just tremendous support to help individuals enroll into any of the 5 institutions. There's a couple of additional requirements that students have to complete, but all of the Alamo colleges are actively out in the high schools beginning in September and helping students submit that paperwork. So the applications, the Save Your Seat, doing the financial aid application, and then working to enroll in that summer bridge program that the students will complete a couple classes in before they start in the fall semester. So a lot of tremendous support to provide access into this Alamo Promise program, which again, just takes away that financial barrier for individuals wanting to come to college. And this is specific to those high school students who are graduating. So next, I also wanted to share another wonderful program that we have at Alamo colleges, and that is called Alamo Online. So fortunately, if you're anywhere in the United States, you have the opportunity to pay $170 per credit hour to take online courses. And what's great about that is if you're looking at, again, that full load of 12 credit hours, you're looking at a really, really reasonable price point that you can pay and then take those classes at a time that's flexible and that works for you. So we know we have a lot of students that are working, they're caregivers, taking care of younger children or taking care of parents or grandparents. And so this online option gives our students the opportunity to really still be able to engage with their education, earn a credential, and have the opportunity to gain additional income for themselves and their family. And then finally, I wanted to provide an overview of career and technical education, professional education, as compared to our transfer programs or kind of those traditional arts and sciences programs. So the wonderful thing about community colleges that's really, really unique is we have a large portfolio of these career and technical education programs. And essentially, the difference between these career and technical education programs as compared to the transfer programs is that the career and technical ed tend to involve very short-term certificates. So you're looking at maybe 1 to 3 months of school of when you would take courses and then you would complete a credential, either level 1 certificate, level 2 certificate. And then you also have the opportunity to build into an associate degree, which is a couple of years, versus the Associate of Arts or Associate of Science or Associate of Arts in Teaching, where that's about a 2-year program if you're going full-time every fall and spring semester, taking 15 hours each semester. So it's nice that students have that option because we recognize as an institution, not everyone's interests lie in the arts and sciences and lie in transferring. We have so many students that come in and their interest is maybe with dental hygiene or advanced manufacturing or computer science, which are many of our career and technical education programs. One of the other amazing benefits is that our students are job ready and placed into jobs as soon as they graduate with either those short-term certificates or those associate degrees. And I always like to use dental hygiene as an example because that is a credential that's 2 years. That one happens to be an associate's degree, but in 2 years, if our students complete that dental hygiene degree, they not only have a wealth of job opportunities because there's a tremendous need for dental hygienists, but they're making $80,000 a year, plus benefits like health insurance and paid time off. And so it's just a wonderful set of programs that provide students with not only jobs, but jobs that pay a living wage for that economic and social mobility. And then, of course, we still have a lot of students who take advantage of our transfer programs. And so you think education, business administration, communications, or art, and they go on to transfer to many of our 4-year partners, not only within San Antonio, but across the U.S. And the Alamo Colleges is part of a transfer compact where multiple schools have come together and committed to the success of our students, so that if students take coursework at the Alamo Colleges, that coursework not only transfers to the 4-year institution, but it applies into that baccalaureate degree, into that 4-year degree, so that our students aren't losing any credit in the process. And those transfer advising guides also clearly map out exactly what the students take at the community college that then helps them ensure transfer and applicability of those courses at the 4-year institution. So at this time, I will turn it back over to Melissa, and thank you all so much again for the opportunity to share a little bit about PAC.
Thank you, Catherine. Wealth of information. So again, I ask our audience if you have questions for Tiffany or Catherine, please put them in the chat, and I will be asking when Mr. Tafoya is done with his presentation. Mr. Tafoya comes to us from the University of New Mexico School of Engineering. He is a student recruitment specialist. So if you have any questions specifically about that college and their entrance and their application, please put your questions in the chat. Toby?
Hi there, yes. So like she said, I am with UNM's School of Engineering, so it's going to be a little bit more specific and kind of narrowed down. than Tiffany and Catherine, but of course I do know all about UNM. So if you have questions, general questions, School of Medicine, School of Law, Fine Arts programs, anything like that, feel free to ask and I can absolutely still answer those questions. But like I said, I am School of Engineering, so a little bit more specific, but we have such a great School of Engineering program here. I'm sure you're going to be very interested by it. And so if we can move ahead to the next slide. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what we look for and what you need to succeed. And even though this is about engineers, I kind of want to stress that this is about students in general as well. These are some things that we really want you to have. And one of the big ones is curiosity, because engineers don't just memorize facts. They're not just learning information. It's about how you're going to use that information going forward, right? It's about asking those questions about using that information to go, okay, so what about this? How does this work? The long-term ideas. And something I really want to stress as well is we want you to have the humility to be able to get support you need from family, from friends, from institutional support agencies, because getting a degree is really hard to do, but it's not impossible. And when you have your friends and your family and you use the institutional support, it's that much easier. So, UNM is great with engineering and institutional support in general. We have lots of tutoring programs. We have lots of scholarship programs. We have, networking opportunities. We have student organizations that help you with those job placements after you've graduated. So, I really want to stress that if you're curious and you're able to get the help that you need, you're going to be able to succeed wherever you go and in whatever program you choose to go into, because those are the two factors that are going to make you successful. And one of the beauties about UNM that you're going to be able to see here is that we lay in the heart of one of the most prolific research triangles in probably the entire world. And you're going to see the distance there. And in total, if you drove that entire trip, you're looking at probably less than a couple of hours. And what this is to our east, we have the Air Force Research Laboratory. There's 6 of those in the country. One of them sits right next to us. And on that same Air Force base is the Sandia National Laboratory, which again, massive Institute of Engineering Research. And then to our north, only an hour and a half, is the Los Alamos National Laboratory. For those of you who kind of know some history, that's of course where they set off the first atomic weaponry and did the first nuclear engineering studies. And so between those 3 institutions, a ton of our students are able to get internships and jobs, and those institutes love us because we're producing high quality students that are able to work for them and be able to go and do that research and produce that new cutting edge type technology. So when you come to UNM, you're sitting in the middle of this engineering explosion of research that is going on. And so it's this great opportunity geographically to be here. And if we can kind of move to the next slide and we can talk about freshman admissions requirements. And this is for the entire university. We don't accept students directly into the School of Engineering. We accept them into UNM. And then over your first 2 years, you then kind of matriculate over to the School of Engineering. With your ACT and your SAT scores, right now, those are, of course, temporarily halted due to the pandemic, but we normally take what's called your super score. So if you do great on your math the first time and you kind of lag on your English, and then the second time you really study up on your English, but you kind of drop off on your math, we're going to take your high math score, we're going to take your high English score, and we're going to put them together, and that's your new super score. For engineering scholarships, it's going to be your most recent math score on either your SAT or your ACT, and some of the scholarships vary from scholarship to scholarship. And of course, unfortunately, all of this is kind of up in the air with the pandemic. Some scholarships are moving to test optional or completely no test whatsoever, and some are sticking with the test. So, you kind of have to just figure out what's the best path for you. And if you go to our website, scholarships.unm.edu, you'll see a lot of that information. Your high school transcript and your college transcript, if you've been taking any kind of college courses or dual enrollment courses, and we take your unweighted GPA, meaning we're taking all of you. We're taking those elective courses, because if they're elective courses, that means you elected to take them. They tell us something about you. If it's band or electronics or whatever course it might be, those aren't just GPA boosters. You took those because that's a part of who you are, because they interested you. And so they're important to you because they show you can be successful in those areas. So we don't care only about your math or only about your English or only about these core courses, because that's not what it really means to be core if we're missing out on another core part of who you are. And then your application, of course, it is a $25 application fee, but if you apply before October 15th, which is about a week away, and you select the pay later option, that $25 is completely waived, so you don't have to worry about that. But it's a very simple application. And so, I encourage you, if you're thinking about it, to apply sooner rather than later, so that way you can start handling any of this kind of scholarship issues that may come up. Plus, right now it's free to apply, so you might as well and start knocking out some of those bureaucratic hurdles that you're going to have to get through. And so one thing, of course, that we offer is that we offer a ton of scholarships. We offer a lot of in-state scholarships, but we also offer a lot of out-of-state scholarships. And the two that I really want to focus on are going to be, actually the three that I want to focus on are going to be on the bottom. That's the Colorado Reciprocal, the Western Union Exchange, and the Lobo University Exchange programs. And basically what these do is these change you from the out-of-state tuition rate to the in-state tuition rate. And as you can see, the criteria for them isn't spectacularly high. And so if you're able to meet these, you're saving yourself about $15,000 a year, or $12,000 a year, kind of depending on which one. And so, if you apply for these and you get these done, and these are not application necessary. So you either receive them or you don't. There's no essays, there's nothing like that. Our admissions department just sees that you've met the criteria, checks off the box, and you're good to go. So you don't even have to worry about that. Although if I were you, I would double check, just because when someone tells me that they're going to give me $13,000 or, cut $13,000 off I like to double check. But, you don't even have to apply or anything like that. It's just taken care of on our end. So it makes it nice and easy, and eliminates some of that financial hurdle that you have to overcome. And then, of course, we offer a bunch of other scholarships. We offer engineering-specific scholarships. UNM offers institutional scholarships. So those sticker prices that you see come way down simply by doing some of these things, like just studying or applying for them or anything along those lines. So, I encourage you, like I said, to apply sooner rather than later so you can start exploring those scholarships and get that number as low as possible. So, if you have any questions, of course, you can check out any of our websites, or you can go ahead and reach out to me. And if you, Google UNM engineering, I'm going to pop right up. So anything along those lines, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it right back over.
Thank you, Toby, and thank all three of you for all that great information. Like I had mentioned to you guys earlier, I have learned it's been quite a while since I've gone through the college application process or scholarships, and so I'm very excited about learning and passing this information on, not only to my family but friends. I have several friends that have seniors, and with COVID, everybody is worried whether they should go to college or not, or whether they should apply now or not. So this is one of the questions that I wanted to ask three of you, starting with you, Tiffany, and I know that you talked about some COVID related changes to your application process, but what can you tell our audience, our students, of whether applying or not, or should they wait?
Yeah, I think maybe I'll start off with a preface that this is very much a human process. We're very understanding that there are many things that are happening beyond a family's control, beyond a student's control. So just to start off with that we do understand that things are going to be a little bit different this year for students that are considering any of the institutions here, or just considering applying to college more generally. So for us, we did have students that requested gap years that were admitted for this fall, but in terms of our plan at this point, nothing is changing in terms of our admissions and selection process. So if this is the year that you were going to apply to college, MIT, I think, is very much still an option, and it should be. And for us, if you did have to request a gap year, or if there was flexibility, those are things that we can work with students. In terms of when to apply, this is another thing, just given circumstances. MIT is an early action school that is non-binding and non-restrictive. Those are a lot of buzzwords. So really what that means is that you can apply early and you can be admitted early, which is great. And you still have until May 1st to give us your intent to enroll to decide. So if MIT is your first choice, that's great. You have that flexibility. But if you'd rather wait until regular action, which is a January 1st, kind of the same deadline for many of our peer schools, that's also okay. The application's identical. The criteria that we're looking for is all the same. So for us, we know that there are a lot of tough choices coming up in terms of where you're applying and kind of things to consider. But we do want to be as flexible as possible with this process. And again, we're actively working with students where we can.
For Palo Alto College, I would say definitely still enroll and start your education. We're huge proponents of accessing education at community colleges and definitely at Palo Alto College. And I know that right now there's so much uncertainty, but I'll share in the chat all of our return to campus resources and guidelines. So there's so many protective measures that are in place for our students who do need to come on site, and we're still offering a good majority of our classes available through those remote offerings, through those online offerings. The other thing that I will share that's really amazing about community colleges is that we're really accepting students throughout the entire calendar year. So you could apply today and really be starting classes for our winter semester in December. Or you could apply today and start classes in January, or you could decide to apply in spring and start those classes in summer. So we have several sessions that are running throughout the year that give that flexibility and that opportunity to our students. So again, definitely encourage you to enroll.
Yeah, so again, from an engineering perspective, the one thing that I can tell you that is an absolute constant from the beginning of time to however long humans will be around is that having an engineering degree or knowing about engineering is always going to be beneficial. From the very beginning, when we were trying to figure out how to make fires, that was an engineering problem. To figuring out, how to make homes for ourselves or how to have shelter, that's an engineering problem. And, Corona comes up, how we have online resources for students who may live in the desert or on reservations where online might be a little bit more difficult. How do we have vaccinations? How do we have separation when we still have to function in a society? All of these are engineering problems. Having an engineering degree or having engineering knowledge is never going to set you back. It's only going to push you forward. So the one thing I would say is, in the midst of all of this chaos, if you look for stability, the one thing that will always be stable is having an engineering degree and having an education in general. It's never bad to be smarter. That is never going to be a bad thing. It's never going to be bad to be more educated. So whether it's engineering or anything else, now is actually probably the perfect time to get your education, because we are going so far out of our way to make sure you are protected on top of all of the other things that we were already doing to make sure an experience for you. And I might also add, as far as the state of New Mexico goes, and I know a lot of states are doing great things, but New Mexico has been on top of the corona pandemic in general. We're absolutely a top 3 state in terms of how we've handled it, our infection numbers, all of that kind of stuff. And so, if you're worried about maybe going to a school that's out of state and the corona pandemic, New Mexico is a great place to be, but again, I know a lot of states are handling it in some amazing ways. So Mexico is not the only one, but we definitely are amongst the better ones in this regard.
Now, our next question is for MIT and UNM. How about housing? How much does that cost? Do you guys offer any scholarships for housing?
So in terms of MIT, housing is guaranteed for all 4 years for students or undergraduates, and first-year students are actually required to live on campus. So just to give you a sense of what that looks like, you'll be with your peers, again, kind of on campus. For us, it's 10 undergraduate resident halls. We also have fraternities and sororities at MIT. So further on in your path as a college student, that's another option in terms of Greek life that you have to consider. In terms of cost, every residence hall is different. So prices may fluctuate slightly depending on where you choose to live. And at MIT, you are actually selecting your residence hall. We're not blindly assigning you one as a first-year student. We want to give students, again, comfort and choice. This is going to be your home for the next 4 years. We want to make sure that you have the ability to select where you're living. In terms of kind of paying for where you live and room and board and things of that nature, your financial aid reward will cover for most students in that case, in terms of that payment piece. So it's by semester, but financial aid, if you are given a reward, that's essentially kind of where that payment piece would come into play. And I can drop the housing link just in the chat for everybody if you want to see. There's pictures and 360 tours, and you can see kind of the cost breakdown for students. Residence halls are very unique at MIT. There's one with a ball pit, like you would find like at a Chuck E. Cheese, which I know is now defunct in most places. There are some dorms that allow you to bring your cat to campus if you want to bring Fluffy with you. That's also an option. So very unique in terms of what you can do. But yeah, plenty of selection. And again, cost will kind of be in consideration with financial aid.
So with UNM, we have a freshman live-on requirement, although of course, pandemic, that's optional right now. But as of right now, if you do live in one of our dorms, that's a shared dorm, you're only still going to pay the one-person price, which is really awesome because you're getting like a 2 or 3 or 4 person dorm all to yourself for the price of one. So that's a great benefit right there. Now that Tiffany has dropped her link, I'm going to go ahead and drop mine. I didn't want to get it out of order. But UNM is a massive commuter campus. The vast majority of our students are coming from commuting, and that actually sort of applies to our housing as well. We do have on-campus dorms, but we also have partnerships with what we call the Lobo Village or the Lobo Rainforest, which are off campus, but we offer shuttle services to them and from them. And so you're getting sort of that kind of mix of living in an apartment by yourself, but still living and getting the campus resources. So it's this really cool mix between the two of them. UNM and Albuquerque in general are just kind of commuter places. And so, but as far as cost goes, it again depends on the dorm. You're going to be able to choose where you live. Some of them are specific. So some of them are like School of Business dorms. So of course you have to be in the School of Business to live in that one. And of course we have fraternity houses and sorority houses. But for the most part, you get to choose where you live. And of course, scholarships, if you get that scholarship money, those can be applied to those because those partnerships with Lobo Village and with Lobo Rainforest, they get added to your UNM costs. And because of that, your scholarship money will be able to be applied to that. And then, of course, something like the Pell Grant, which is oftentimes just paid out in cash, you can do whatever you want with cash. So you can just pay that right onto your UNM bill. So those are the different ways that you can look at it. I dropped the link in there. There's a lot of cool tours in there, and of course, all of our different places. Lobo Village, Lobo Rainforest were very recently built. A lot of our dorms were recently remodeled. So new kind of state-of-the-art stuff in there. So, it's really cool. But again, that is optional during the pandemic, but I'm sure it'll come back during, once things hopefully settle back down.
Thank you, Toby. Now, this question is specifically for Palo Alto. The question is the Alamo Promise for adults as well. And specifically,
so that
we do have we do have senior part of our senior program. And so that's why that question is there.
Yes, and that's an amazing, amazing, amazing question. And I know a topic that we've discussed quite a bit at the Alamo colleges and Palo Alto College. So right now, Alamo Promise is specific to those graduating high school seniors from those 25 schools in the area in Bexar County. And the 25 schools were selected based on college going rates. So those schools that had those lower college going rates where their seniors weren't necessarily enrolling in college, those were the first sets of schools that are part of the Tier 1, Phase 1 set of schools that are targeted and eligible for the program. But what I will say is 2 other things. One, we are looking at and exploring sort of an adult promise, because we understand, and as you saw in our average age at 22, a lot of our students will stop out after high school, and they'll take a couple of years and then come back to us or then enroll with us. And so we know that that's a really large majority of the students that we serve, and we're trying to research and see what kinds of supports that we can provide for those students. The other thing that I will share is that the City of San Antonio, in partnership with the Alamo Colleges, received funding to develop a Earn as you learn program. So for any individuals who have been impacted by COVID, so kind of our displaced workers in San Antonio, if they've been impacted by COVID, they can apply for this program, be enrolled, get courses, get a credential, and you'll actually earn a stipend as you go to school, and they get full wraparound support system to include childcare support. So this is a wonderful partnership with the City of San Antonio, and we're really, really excited to have that. It's slated to serve over 5,000 individuals. And then the final thing that I'll share is, again, a lot of our students will apply for financial aid, and they will qualify for that Pell Grant. So while you might not be eligible for Promise, I do encourage you to apply for the financial aid. We also have a lot of scholarships available, and we find that many of our students are receiving aid that's helping cover the cost of coming to the college.
Thank you, Catherine. During our meeting a few weeks ago, we talked about the transfer process, which some of you that are watching us may be considering this. I know I did this because I had to pay for my own college. What is the transfer process like from you to, say, UNM, MIT, or Toby and Tiffany? If you could answer that question, how do you guys receive transfer students? You know, is it a different application process and things like that?
Yes, thank you so much, Melissa. So one of the amazing supports that all of our students at not only Palo Alto College, but across the 5 institutions throughout Alamo Colleges receive is that our students have a dedicated certified advisor. So from the moment they enroll their first semester until the time they graduate, transfer, go into the workforce, our students are working with the same certified advisor throughout that academic journey. And what the certified advisors do is they provide our students with support to submit applications to the four-year institutions like University of Texas at San Antonio or MIT or UNM. And they provide support to our students so that they can submit the application to the four-year schools, submit all of the documentation. And the colleges have done a lot of work to really ensure that the classes that you're taking with us at the community college level, that the classes not only, again, transfer, but that they apply into the bachelor's program. So many of our students start with Palo Alto College. They take the basics. We say you take the basics, your general education requirements like your English and your math and your psychologies, and then you transfer those courses out to the four-year institutions. And we find a lot of our students are doing that, and we've worked to provide that dedicated individual to support in the process, working with our local partners and across the nation to ensure transferability of the courses and applicability, and just providing our students with a wealth of support. The other support that's available is let's say our students, maybe they need to transfer to the four-year institution, and there's some classes that won't necessarily apply into the baccalaureate program. We have what's called the reverse transfer program, which means if you complete a four-year degree and then you send us the transcripts, you can be awarded an associate's degree. So again, going both ways, always we really try to work with our students to complete that credential and ensure that they're saving time and money and not taking classes that they're not going to be able to use.
So we have a very, very transfer process because community colleges play such an integral role to the university process and the education process in general. And actually, like, walking distance from UNM is CNM, Central New Mexico Community College. And they're an amazing school. A lot of our students start out there, just like Catherine was mentioning, knocking out some of those Englishes, the maths, and stuff like that. There's such great teachers there. I did that as a high schooler. It was a great education process for me. And because of that, because we have such a close partnership with them and all of the institutions, of course, around the country and around the state, the transfer process is very, very easy for us. If you have more than 24 credit hours, then you're considered a transfer student. Less, you're considered a freshman application. If you have a 2.0 or higher, you can transfer right in. Now you're applying for the university, not any kind of actual school. That application is varies from school to school. You know, the School of Engineering has different processes to, you know, the School of Fine Arts or the College of Arts and Sciences. So those kind of depend. But as far as UNM is concerned, you get that 2.0, you have 24 credit hours or more, you're good to go. And then the way a lot of our schools work, I know this was my example with, again, for School of Arts and Sciences, because my degree was in psychology. Even if you have a little lower of a GPA, if you spend that next year really working on raising that GPA, they're probably going to let you in. They don't have a very, very strict degree GPA. It's more kind of like, how are you doing lately? If you've struggled early on, have you matured? Have you been able to kind of correct yourself? That was something I struggled on early on with my career, was I wasn't mature enough to be a college student, joined the military, got maturity, got discipline. And then I was able to come back and they were able to look at that and say, hey, he as a student has become better. And so UNM is great at that as well with our transfer students, because they may be transferring for a whole bunch of reasons and looking and saying, who are you now? And can you succeed here now? So that's our transfer process. It's, again, very easy to do. And I'm going to go ahead and leave the link in the chat box.
Yeah. So at MIT, we do have a transfer process. It is a relatively small cohort of students that we admit every year. It's usually between 20 and 25 students. But I will say that about half of our students are coming from community colleges. So for us, we're seeing students that perhaps took different paths academically, maybe non-traditional students. For us, it's going to be a different application than our first year applicant pool. We're asking different questions. We're looking at both your high school and your local community college, local university transcripts, letters of recommendation. So there are some similarities, but that is what that process looks like. And at MIT, you can apply to either start in the spring semester, which just starts in February, or if not, you can start in the fall in September. So the deadlines are a little bit different. I can also drop in the information in terms of what transfer looks like. There is no, in terms of how you're applying, we want you to kind of think about what you want to major in, because you're going to be assigned an advisor once you enroll. But yeah, it's a very small but mighty group of students on campus. I think definitely add very different perspective, but very valuable perspective in terms of our undergraduate community. And yeah, I used to oversee that process for a few years, and it's really amazing students that we'll see that come through, through that application.
Thank you, Tiffany. Now, for everyone that is watching and is wondering, are you guys, any of you guys offering tours of your campuses at this moment? Or I heard one of you guys say, or maybe all, say that there's 360 tours online, but are you offering any in-person tours to your colleges or universities?
So at this point, the admissions office has been working remotely since March, and we don't have a date when we're going back yet. So for us, we're not actually physically on campus. So we've moved all of our programming virtually. So students and families can still attend an information session with an admissions officer, go on a virtual campus tour led by an undergraduate student at MIT. It's been a bit of a transition, I think, for everybody, but ultimately we still want students to be able to have that access to learn more about MIT and explore our campus in some capacity. So we do have that. Those are happening kind of throughout the academic year. I think they're posting month by month, just kind of seeing how things are going in terms of numbers, but I can also drop that link in the chat.
For some of the more main campus, general campus places, they are doing some in-person tours. Again, I kind of focus on engineering. So for engineering, we are only doing virtual tours. We haven't really done any kind of in-person tours. And even then, with the in-person tours that the general campus has done, it really depends on where you're coming from. The state of New Mexico currently has some policies, kind of depending on the state you're coming from, depending on the rate that you're coming from as far as infection rate. So if your state is over 5%, you have to quarantine for 2 weeks. And of course, we're a state institute, so we absolutely have to follow that policy. Not only that, I just don't want to get sick. So we're definitely following that policy. But we have a ton of virtual tours that are going on right now. And I've created a lot of 360 virtual tours of some of our labs. We have a tour that showcases our nuclear reactor. In fact, we have an event that's going to be showcasing our nuclear reactor. You get to see inside of the nuclear reactor. If you want any of that information, I'm going to go ahead and leave my contact information in here so you can get any of that information, because, I mean, who gets to see inside of a nuclear reactor? It's really cool. So
thank you, Toby. That is amazing. Now, Catherine, I know you guys offer a lot of online courses. Students actually coming onto the campus.
Yes, so we are offering about 10% of our courses in person on site this fall semester. And it's primarily those courses that really require hands-on learning. So think we have a veterinary technology program, we have advanced manufacturing. A lot of our science labs really have a huge hands-on component that just needs to be conducted within the lab space, in the classroom space. So yes, we have about 10% of our courses on site this fall, and we're slated to have about 20% on site in the spring in order to ensure we're supporting achievement of those student learning outcomes for the courses.
Thank you, Catherine. Now this for Tiffany and Toby, because Catherine did cover the price of their online courses. Does the price change for Tiffany and Toby online courses at MIT or University of New Mexico?
Yes. So at MIT, we don't have an online undergraduate program. We do have opportunities for students to take classes through things like edX, which is a partnership that we have with many other schools, including Harvard, in terms of having kind of this massive online coursework type model. MIT also has something called Open Courseware. We call it OCW. And essentially that is every class that's offered at MIT, you have a virtual component, you have the syllabus, and students can kind of see realistically what MIT students are taking in terms of courses. Given COVID, in terms of where students are now, the majority of classes are being taught remotely online, but pricing for that, from what I can recall, I don't think that has faced a shift. I think it's just going to be kind of the same base price. We have seniors currently that are living on campus to prioritize since they're wrapping up their final year. And then in the spring, we're reevaluating to see if that population on campus hopefully can shift to include the rest of the undergraduate community.
So for us, we charge strictly by credit hour. And you actually do end up having to pay a very small online fee, but there's not a price difference, although some students did say that they thought that their number had come down but I'm not quite sure where they were getting that information from. But yeah, we charge strictly by credit hour. So there's not a price difference.
Thank you, Toby. Now, I know before we got started, Raul and I were both asking you guys what the weather was like where you're students and families cannot tour your locations. Can you describe to our audience what your location is like as far as it goes? Tiffany?
Yeah, at MIT, you will experience the true 4 seasons in terms of, especially I'll emphasize fall and winter. And I say this, my best friends in college, I kind of grew up in this area, we're, from Texas and California, so from very warm places. But yeah, I think for us, we recommend to students, if you're not from New England or kind of from this area, first thing you should do is invest in a good winter coat and a good pair of boots that will carry you very far in terms of your experience. But students are definitely able to kind of acclimate and make that adjustment. MIT, kind of as a fun fact, we also have a tunnel system. So you can get from one side of campus, in terms of academic buildings, one side of campus to the other without actually going outside. We also have something called the Infinite Corridor. It's about 250 some odd meters, so not infinite really, but it's kind of the main artery of campus. So you can get through various buildings, different departments, again, without actually exiting the building. So a little quirky, but I think, yeah, it's when it's snowing outside and when you have class on a cold, blustery day, it certainly comes in handy.
Yeah, you can sum up New Mexico with a few words, 300 days of sunshine a year. I have seen it snow and I have seen it rain and the sun be out here. That's just New Mexico for you. We live in the beautiful desert here, but that offers a lot of diverse plant life. And I was telling you guys earlier is we have the beautiful desert fires where right when the sun is starting to set to the east, you have the mountains and they glow this beautiful kind of pink. That's why they're called the Sandia Mountains. It's the watermelon mountains. And then the desert, the sun reflects off the desert, and it might be a little cold at night sometimes, but when you look out at that desert and it's that desert fire, and it's beautiful. And that's the best way to describe New Mexico, is a lot of sun, but a lot of beautiful scenery.
Yes, so I like to say that San Antonio, Texas also has 4 seasons. They're called hot, hotter, and hottest. And it's very sunny and warm all year round, all the time. It's actually 90 degrees right now, but Palo Alto College is located on the southern side of the city, and it is just an absolutely beautiful, breathtaking campus. Any of our visitors who come on site that have maybe never seen campus or never visited, they always remark at how beautifully kept it is, how clean it is. We've been fortunate to have received several grants through the Department of Education that helped install botanical gardens and an acequia, which is like a fountain running through the campus. And so it's just a beautiful campus with beautiful landscaping, and the weather is gorgeous as well. And every once in a blue moon, we will get some snow here in Texas, but not very frequently.
Thank you, Catherine. And as we start to wrap up this session, I want to thank each one of you guys. I have learned so much from you and each one of your institutions. Again, I welcome our audience. If you have any last minute questions, to please put it in the chat. If not, we can send your questions to each one of these institutions. I will welcome Raul back. Raul?
Yes, thank you all. Thank you, Toby, Catherine, Tiffany, and Melissa. Great presentation. Good to learn about the different institutions, the different options that students, young and old, have with your institutions, and also through other colleges and universities.